I don't have many rules. That's a big part of Tiger Style. We have two. The first one is live Tiger Style. The second is go to every class. Third one, because ADs always bug me. I always get new ADs and they're like, what are your team rules and all these things. I guess coaches have pages of them. And I put one, live Tiger Style, two, go to every class. So I added a third, see number one. So we have three rules, even though there's only two on it. And that's it.
Coaches, welcome to the Better Coaching Podcast, powered by RYG Athletics, a proud provider of Nike sports camps. The mission of this podcast is simple. We want to help coaches get better. We do it by connecting coaches with ideas and strategies they can implement to grow as a coach and a leader, to ultimately better serve their players and teams. I'm excited to welcome Coach Brian Smith to the podcast today. Coach Smith is the head wrestling coach at the University of Missouri, and he's in his 28th season. He's the all-time winningest coach in program history and the architect of their Tiger-style culture that has turned Mizzou into a perennial national powerhouse. His track record speaks for itself. He's led the Tigers to 12 consecutive conference championships and top 10 NCAA finishes in 9 of the last 11 seasons. During his tenure, he's coached 6 wrestlers to a combined 10 national titles, produced 69 All-Americans, and developed 2 Olympians. A 2-time National Coach of the Year and former president of the National Wrestling Coaches Association, Coach Smith joins us to discuss how he built his Tiger-style culture from the ground up. We talk about how to lead yourself, why he believes in shorter practices, and how to develop athletes who love to compete. On a personal note, I absolutely loved this conversation with Coach Smith. His passion, vision, and commitment are so inspiring. He makes it sound like the culture they've built is normal, but it's anything but. I think you'll really enjoy learning from him and how he built their culture. And before we dive into the show, if you're interested in learning more about how we serve and work with coaches, you can head to the show details for links to the free podcast notes, our free online community of over 450 coaches, and information on becoming one of our Nike Sports Camp directors. Now to the show. Enjoy. Coaches, welcome back to the podcast. Really excited today to be joined by head coach Brian Smith of the University of Missouri's wrestling program. Coach Smith, really grateful for your time today, and I would love it if we could just start off and you could tell the audience a little bit about you and your background in sport and coaching, and maybe even a little bit more about what you're doing now at Mizzou.
Well, always was a part of coaching because my dad was a high school teacher and coach. So when I was a young kid, probably 5 years old, started on the sidelines helping out, going to coaches' meetings, hanging out with dad. And it was like, that's what I'm gonna do. And it's stuck with me. Here I am. I'm 60 years old, still doing it from 5 years old, wanting to be a coach and living out my dream. But thought it was always going to be football because that's what my dad was. And then in high school, my dad kind of in ninth grade said, "What are you going to do in the winter after football?" And I said, "Probably basketball." And he's like, "I think wrestling would be good for you." And I was like, "Ah." And that's when I listened to him, started wrestling, fell in love with it, and it became my sport and never looked back. And here I am. I'm on my 29th year or 28th year at Mizzou. 29th year as a head coach in D1. So it's been a journey. I started in high school and then as an assistant coach for 5 years at Cornell, but love that I'm here and have lasted this long. But I know it takes a lot of, you don't see that happen in coaching too often with coaches sticking around at the same place, but I'm glad I did. I really love the people here and the community, and my 3 kids have graduated from Mizzou, so it's been a special time here, and it's still going. We just got off the bus at midnight last night, so we're rolling.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much there to your point. Yeah. Very rare to find a coach that's been at the same place, high school, college, pro, like you name the level. 28 years at a place is not common, especially anymore. But you've had some really significant success there. I'm guessing that's a huge reason they kept you around. And I think that's kind of what we're going to talk about is what led to that success. Everybody sees the success that people achieve, and it's like, wow, but they don't see what went into it. And you released a book not too long ago called Tiger Style, kind of diving into the culture that you've built there and kind of the 8 steps that you outline that built that culture that's led to that success. So I'd love if you just, yeah, will you go over those 8 steps with us? And then I'd love to just kind of dive into them a little bit more.
Well, it really started with the core of Tiger Style, and there's the 4 pillars of Tiger Style. So it all kind of just fits in there, which is you have to believe. And what do you believe in? So when I got here, I believe this was a sleeping giant. We could get people, turn it into this like really, really successful program, but things had to change. And if you believe that you can achieve these things, you're going to have to live this life. And then that's the second level of Tiger Style. You have this belief, I think we can accomplish these things. But then the second level is compete. And when you compete, it isn't what you see on a Saturday or at the gym or at the arena. It's your daily, what are you doing when you wake up? What's the first thing you do? And what are you trying to accomplish each day to grow and get better? And that's competing. And we've really broken it down for our guys and taught them how to do it. And a lot of them come in successful and know that path. But, with Tiger Style, they follow it and they believe it and they keep doing it more. And they bring each other up too. And that's where you get to the third step, which is one more. And one more is a huge component of Tiger Style, which is when you have the ability to have 30 wrestlers and your staff and everybody giving a little bit more to the program and for others, it elevates everything. And it's just that thing where everybody does the practice, but it's the teams that'll stay after and do more. Everybody can get straight, get good grades, but it's the kid that decides, I'm going to turn this B or this C to a letter grade higher. And it's just the way we approach our program and everything outside of it. It's not just the wrestling component. I think we just ended up with like a 3.3 overall team GPA. And they were disappointed with it because their goal was higher than that. But that's what I want, that they're always striving to get better. And that's the one more, doing that little bit of extra. And if you believe you compete, you do the one mores, you're going to expect to win. Everybody's like, are you going to win? Well, we expect it because we've believed in it. We've competed for it. We've done the one mores for it. And that's really what Tiger Style is. And then I broke it down into 8 more things. I was doing an interview on a radio one time, KMOX or something out of St. Louis, and they're like, what's Tiger Style? And I'm like, wow, that's going to be hard to do in like a 3-minute drive home episode. But it made me think. And then one night I'm writing and I came up with these 8 steps, find your identity, and all these things that came of the 8 steps. And I broke it down into a talk that I did for an hour in St. Louis at a golf outing. And got this standing O for it, and I thought, man, it was good. And my wife, of course, said, yeah, they just came off the golf course and they probably had to go to the bathroom. And you talked for an hour, and I said, thanks, Denise. But I knew it was good. And then I run into the people that share my story and Streamline Books, and they're like, that's what you're going to write, these 8 steps. And that's how it became the book. And then I got other people to write stories in there. If you read it with Jaden Cox and Michael Chandler and some of the stories that give examples of living Tiger Style, how they struggled, how they believed, came back, did more. And they wrote their story, which was neat. I wrote the
Yeah.
story and they kind of wrote their stories. There's a lot of stories in there, and so it was neat. It wasn't something I looked at that, man, I'm going to write a book and become this famous author. No, it was just one of those things when I was sitting with my team one time and asking them about goals. They said, Coach, what are your goals besides winning national titles and all those things with coaching? And I'm like, I think I'd love to write a book. I read, I have a library right over here with 200 books that I've read. And, my team reads a lot of books because of that I haven't passed on this thing that I like to do. And I've told them it's good. Reading is what good, successful people do. And so I told him that day I wanted to write a book. It was about 15 years ago. And then I told people about it. And of course, when you tell people about a goal, they kind of hold you accountable to it. So when I finally ran into the people that share my story, and it just was like, you got to do this. You got to do this. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And I had it in my phone, chapters and things like that. I have a second book in my phone now, just on coaching and helping coaches and wanting to do it, but it's in my phone. And now I have to be kind of kicked in the butt to get it going, but I'm in a busy time right now.
It's
But
real.
that's kind of how it all came about.
I love it.
And
I
it
I've
just,
got one of those in my phone too, the whole outline too.
yeah.
Like I've got it. It just I gotta yeah, I need the kick in the butt too probably. Yeah, that's so good. I love it. There's a couple other things I want to ask more about that stuck out. Kind of your four values for your program: belief, compete, one more, expect to win. Kind of those mantras and values. I think they're really powerful. You've had significant, serious success in your program. You've been there 28 years. Again, these things are not common. But one of the things that stood out is you talked about the vision you had when you were trying to get this job. I saw a post where you actually shared like the portfolio that you took
Yeah.
into your interview 28 years ago that I think laid out this vision. Will you tell us more about that? Because I think this is something that's so can be maybe overlooked for coaches. Like, hey, you're trying to get a job. Like, well, do you even have a vision for where this program could go or this team could go? Will you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Well, when I was applying for jobs, and Missouri was my 10th, and I think I got 4 or 5 of the 10 that I interviewed for, turned a couple down, actually took one for a couple weeks and then got another interview and took that. So I kind of got pushed away from that one. But it was crazy times. But you would put together these packets. And I remember it was on the old school Apple computers with, the printer, and trying to take a picture and put it on it, and how easy it is today to do these things. But back then it was like rocket science. And but I mapped out all these things that I thought would, I believed would what Missouri needed to be successful. And, getting organizing the program on responsibilities of everybody in the program. I had sheets on that to, you have to build your fan base, your recruiting base, your alumni, everything. It was it was probably about 15 pages of what I believed we needed to do. And I think the year we took third in the country back in 2007, uh, one of the assistant ADs brought it out and said, "Look, you're doing it all." And then about a year ago, or maybe 6 months ago, my associate AD, Will Cava, who oversees the program, found it in one of the desks, and he's like, "Look what I just found." And I'm like, "Man, I want to take that. You can copy it or whatever. I want that. I'm gonna save that. That's pretty cool." And I showed my coaches, and I said, "We really haven't strayed from this. This is the plan we're still following. We've grown and gotten better." And other things that you can take from this, but this is still the base of what we're trying to do: build a culture, get kids to buy in, find very intelligent, bright kids that are going to spread your scholarships because they're on academic money. It was this whole plan, and we're still following it and still have success. So when people are like, I run into them, I'm like, "So what's your plan?" And they're like, "I don't know. I have some ideas." I'm like, "You got to write it down. You've got to write down your vision." And so that's the first thing. You get this idea in your head. It's between your ears. You have this great idea. I want to do this stuff, but then you have to write it down. And then you got to put it everywhere. But then and then of course you got to start living it. And then people start to catch on and see it and want to live. For us, it's Tiger Style. We live Tiger Style, and I don't have many rules. That's a big part of Tiger Style. We have two. The first one is live Tiger Style. The second is go to every class. The third one, because ADs always bug me. I always get new ADs, and they're like, "What are your team rules?" And all these things. And I guess coaches have pages of them. And I put one, live Tiger Style; two, go to every class. So I added a third, C number one. So we have three rules, even though there's only two on it. And that's it. When a kid gets in trouble or doesn't live it right, I'll call him in. I'm like, "Are you living Tiger Style?" "No." "What can we do?" and they're mature enough, the type of kids we're recruiting, that I got to get back on task and start, my life has to get better by doing this and this. And they map it out. And I said, well, go do that. It's not always that easy, but it has been. With the group we have now, it's pretty easy. We have kids living it right and doing it right and excited to go to class and want to become, I have kids wanting to become engineers and doctors and lawyers and also becoming national champs. And that's what I've envisioned this program, and that's what we have now.
Yeah, that's so cool. Hey, it gives me chills too. Yeah, to look back, like, oh my gosh, I wrote all this stuff down and we brought it to life. And it's like you said, it's like you chose to live it day after day after day for decades. Literally,
Right.
like that's it. It wasn't just overnight, but yeah, the clear vision and getting people on board with that, like you just can't understate how important that is. I'm really curious as far as your Tiger style, these mantras: belief, compete, one more, expect to win. How did you choose those?
Do a lot of reading. So I read books on wooden. Pete Carroll has a Win Forever book, which is really interesting. Read a lot of different books on successful coaches from Lombardi to Saban. I read a ton, and that's kind of how I got it, started to see when I was reading Pete Carroll's book. He talked about coaching 21 years before he sat down and wrote down what he's trying to do. And that's in that book, of what it is, what win forever means. And it took him a long time. And then all of a sudden, he writes it down, and he starts winning national titles at USC and having success in the NFL. And he's still going. I think he's 70 years old and still crushing it out there. And so when you see that, Wooden had his triangle. So I kind of stole the triangle. I don't have as many. I was on the NCAA committee, and when I would have to go do the seating for the NCAAs and sometimes I'd get kicked out of the seating room when my Mizzou guys were up for seeds, and I'd have to walk the hallway, and I saw the wooden triangle in their hallway, and I'd be looking at it and learning from it and all the different levels he had and words, and what they meant. So and then I sat down with administrators. At that time, my dad was still alive, a former coach, and people that I really respect that are in the business world. And what makes your company? And I just really picked people's brain, but ultimately it had to be my identity. What do I want this program? I have to learn that what's successful out there, and I think that's why these books, there's all these self-help books and motivational books out there. You can learn from it, but it has to ultimately be you. What do you want Mizzou wrestling to be? And I couldn't be Oklahoma State or Iowa. There's an identity that makes up the state of Missouri. It's this hardworking blue collar, and it's a state school like that. It's the big one in the middle of the state. It's the only Division I program for wrestling in the state. So there's a lot of pride in the wrestling program here. But I had to take that value and then put it into this, what we are. And that's what Tiger Style. That's how it kind of all came about.
Yeah, I think something you said there that is just worth highlighting. I can't remember who said it, but it's always resonated with me. Like the leader creates themselves and the team and the program. Like you said, those values, they had to be authentic to you. So it's your journey of learning, reflecting, asking questions. Who am I? What is this school? Where are we? What matters here? And kind of that, yeah, just molding that and that clarity of, okay, now I'm going to write it down. And these are the things that matter to us.
Yeah.
The other
And
thing
I mean, when you
yeah,
think
go
of
ahead.
it too, it's my upbringing. My parents were just amazing parents. My dad, I learned a lot from coaching. So there was a lot taken from my dad. And I just remember the relationships. When my dad passed away, I was coaching that day. So I'm spending the day coaching. No, my dad just passed away. It was a tough day, but I was able to say goodbye to him when he was, not in good health. But I sat in a bed with him and we talked coaching for hours. My last time with him, and then relationships and family and all these things. And it's really what I wanted Tiger Style to be. And I remember walking away from him that day thinking I might never see my dad again, but he's always he's with me all the time. He is with me all the time, and he really was a big part of Tiger Style, and how he lived and lived his life and how he treated his athletes. That day, I was getting phone calls from former players of his, I just heard about your dad and this and that, and I'm trying to coach, but I'm taking these calls, and you're talking about an emotional roller coaster day. But I know my dad knew I was in the right place. I was coaching and helping young men and doing what he loved and doing what I love. And so it was, to me, it was a hard day, but it was where I should be.
Yeah. That's wow, wow, what a powerful story. Yeah, I think so. So important to just remember too. Like, hey, the end comes for all of us, and
Yeah,
like, live with the end in mind, right? Like you've got that, and it's so sobering when you experience loss of someone, but then for you to even coming away from that, like, man, so much clarity in your purpose and your experiences. Like, yeah, but this is who I am, and this is how you're built to serve people still through coaching. Um, yeah, that's a beautiful story. Thanks for sharing it. I'm curious. You have a culture established. It's been there for a long time, but every year you've got new athletes that come in. Every team is a new team. I'm sure you would probably like you might have some kids coming back, but you just change one or two athletes and it's a totally different dynamic on your team. You've seen
without
enough
a
teams to
doubt.
know that. How do you take this new team each year and establish these standards again with them or get their input on that? Like, how do you get buy-in to these standards every single year?
Well, the important thing is probably a lot of young kids when they're growing up. You probably will relate to this when you have, I think, good parents. They'll tell you if you're hanging out with the wrong people, they're going to let you know. I used to be told that if you hang around crap, you're probably going to smell like it and it's going to bring you down and not make you look good or smell good and that type of thing. But if you hang around good people, they elevate you. And so the type of kids you're recruiting. And so we have a list of things of what we think is Tiger style. And when we start recruiting those kids, it's the questions we're asking. We ask them to ask us questions about us, and we start to develop this relationship. And in our coaches meetings, we start saying, yeah, this kid is going to fit the culture of Tiger style because said this, really has a growth mindset, really wants to do well in school and this, but is passionate about when he lost his match, he didn't blame. He said, I got to get back to work and work on this because this is, and they have that right mentality. So through that process, we know we're getting the right kids. But then when we get them here, is developing their leadership. I don't have captains on my team. I think picking captains is giving a couple titles to kids. And yes, they may be the leaders of the team, but my concept is everybody should be a leader in the program. I don't care if it's my equipment guy. He's a leader in the program. To my true freshman that's stepping in, be a leader. Lead the freshman in the beginning and then become a leader by the end of the season or right away, whatever it takes. But so my vision is I have 30 wrestlers. They all should be in the leadership. And there are guys that stand out, and I meet with them. There were 7 this summer that I met with every week, and then they pulled the team aside and had meetings every week away from the athletic facilities and did things together as a team. And so they were building relationships. They were building the culture by how they want them to live. And when you get to know people, that's how relationships grow. Not just from wrestling on a mat, but being outside the building and doing things together. They started, and I had a guy from North Carolina walk up to, they were at the tournament this past weekend, and he came up to me and he's like, it was just out of the blue, Coach, I was watching your team and how they relate with each other, and I've read your book on the culture, and it's just really cool how close they are and together they are and fighting for each other and bringing each other up, which is what I we strive to do. And I said, man, I really that's like the ultimate compliment. So thank you, and I'm glad you noticed. I kind of take it for granted now and just think that's the way the team is, and but it does take work to do that. And so elevating people, anybody associated with the program is expected to live Tiger style. So it starts from the recruiting process, the people I hire, the people that surround the program, even to the administrators that oversee, here's what Tiger Style is. You got to understand it. When I get a new AD, I go in and tell them, here's what Tiger Style is. Here's the book. Read it too. But this is the culture of our program and why we think we're successful. We know that. And I hope you'll be a part of it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, it is cool to get a compliment like that from another coach. Like they notice that there's something different about your group. Um, yeah, we've talked about how you create and establish a culture. You kind of talked about earlier how you um, enforce it when athletes mess up. It was kind of brief, but it was actually pretty powerful. You talked about you bring them in, you have a conversation, and you start asking questions. And usually, when we shut up and ask questions, they'll arrive at a pretty
Yeah.
good place where they realize what needs to happen. I think that's really important. The other piece I'm curious to ask you about is how do you reinforce your culture? Like how are you highlighting, celebrating, making it obvious when someone's living it out?
Um, you got to recognize Tiger Style behaviors. And so you'll say, all right, what the heck is that, Brian? So we'll have practice. We're off today, but tomorrow we'll have a practice and we'll recognize things throughout the weekend of what we did good. And we, like all our injured guys traveled with us and we're helping out, helping our director of ops with the food, labeling the food, helping guys warm up, helping guys cool down after matches, cheering for guys, whatever it took. And to our photographers and video people and how they're a part of it. They sit in the rooms with us and we make them a part of the family. And all these people make our program special, but you have to recognize those behaviors. So a lot of times when you start meetings and things, you bring up the things that are wrong as a coach. Man, we got to get better here, here, here. But you got to remember to recognize your behaviors that are doing the right, that are living Tiger style to then reinforce what you want. And so we do that. At the end of the week, we do a grateful and we did it the night before the tournament because we were out in Iowa. And we usually stand in a circle around the mat and guys step out and say, I'm really grateful. Luke did this podcast with me and asked great questions. And it was great because he did his homework and knew about me and I got to know about it. But we're developing that. Man, I want to recognize people helping me. Some of the guys will say, so and so helped me study for my whatever math test. But they're saying, I'm really grateful that you're a part of this program. And when you do that, it helps people grow. We keep journals. So after practice, you'll see kids writing journals. When we have tough practices, we call it tough talk. The tough talk, but you're actually sitting and talking. If we worked out today and we went live, and say you were beating me in areas, you would say, here's why I was beating you. I was getting you to reach. And we start taking notes on it, helping each other grow. And a lot of people have trouble with that, having constructive criticism. But if you're in the mindset of Tiger Style that growth is important and how you get better as a group and an individual, you have to have tough talks. And so we do tough talks after practice with journals on what you did good in practice and what you need to improve at, and they're helping each other. And you'll say, why would I want my teammate that I'm battling for the spot to get better? Because if they get better, I get better and everybody keeps elevating. And you have to have that mindset. And it's really cool to watch when they're doing it, sitting with the notebooks, the journals, and talking to each other. And then they get up and their practice is over and they're working on things on their own. And that's, we call it a one more. So it's things like that. Those are the things we're doing to emphasize that it's always talked about. That I even we understand that Tiger Style is why we're successful and it's being talked about constantly. We do a mental Monday every Monday. Today we're off, so we'll do something tomorrow. And it's just a talk on any topic that we think needs to be, whether it's a growth mentality, whether it's focus, whether it's, learning to deal with adversity, whatever the topic is. We have different topics and then we'll break into 4 or 5 groups where the assistants lead the groups. So they're smaller discussion groups and always trying to grow through that. And people will say, why do you waste practice time on that? And I'll say, because at the end of the season, it always comes down to the mental side. And if you talk to coaches, they always talk that our mental Mondays are just as important, and all through the week, it's the theme of the week. And we take that theme. One of the weeks, a couple of weeks ago, we were struggling. And I just think we went out on the mat and we weren't courageous. And what I mean by that, it got tough and we kind of faltered a little. And I said, so that comes from the practice room. We got to have more courage to step in there and battle tougher. So we're going to make some tougher practices. And so the theme, and it's still carrying on, we got to be more courageous. We got to battle when it gets tough. And that's what, when we talked about what is courageous and all these things. So you're growing them. Guys are using this after they get out of college. I was just at a wedding last week and I had a couple of them coming up and saying, "Man, it's funny how I'm taking Tiger style and I'm still living it, coach, and using it for this job and doing this and my family and whatever it may be." So these messages on the Mental Monday, the Grateful Fridays that we do, the growth, tough talks that we do with our journals, all those things are reinforcing what Tiger style is.
Yeah, no, that's so good. Wow. There's several things that stood out, and it's funny, 'cause, like, you talk about this so casually. It's like, yeah, it's just who we are. It's just what we do. But like, and you've probably been around enough. Like, this isn't actually normal. Like, it's not normal in most sports programs to live like this or to do these things, to be so process focused, and even just like you find positives first, right? That's massive. And in a world where like that's uncommon to start with, and especially in sport environments, I'm guessing there's a lot of your athletes that come to you and they didn't come from an environment like this. They're really good wrestlers, but they probably didn't come from a place where the good was called out and positive things were celebrated. And the power of expressing gratitude and affirmations to each other, like that changes a group so fast. It's crazy. Now, on every team I've coached and at the sports camps we run, we do shout out celebrations like
Yeah.
daily, end of
High
practice.
fives or shout outs.
And it is just like, hey, where did you see someone live out the leadership or mindset qualities that we're talking about? I'm not even worried about, the technique, the thing that they performed, like where the kind of person they were, the things they did, how they led, how they treated each other. It's just like that. It's like freaking super glue. Like you just come together so quickly when that's expressed out loud.
Yeah. But it has to be lived. And,
Yeah.
I before this season, I saw how close this group was. And I said, man, when we're about to wrestle in a dual meet, the guy that's up to wrestle just kind of gets up and he runs out. And I said, why do all you guys sit in the chair and watch him get up? I said, why don't you just lay a hand on him and give him that power, give him that energy and tell him, and I said, we should be doing that. That you get excited when your teammates are up. And I said, so lay a hand on them and tell them good luck and this and that. So of course, before the first duel, here they are, they're laying and they're getting them all fired up, and it was so cool to see that. And I
That's awesome.
remember having another coach say, "I really see your team when they're doing that." But I said, "But that has to be. They don't just naturally just. Sometimes they'll do things like that, but those things have to be taught, and culture has to be learned, and it takes a lot of work."
Yeah.
For me, there's times I'll forget that Grateful Friday, and one of my wrestler coach, we haven't done Grateful, and I'm like, ah, yes, we'll do it. You're right. Let's go, circle up, and
But
it's
that's when
just,
you
but
know they've bought into it,
yes,
It's not just you anymore. It's like this is what we do here. We're a part of it. They own it
but
too.
it has to, and or I'll see a video, or talk to somebody, and they'll give me some ideas, and it's always in my mind that I gotta find new mental Mondays. And so we were watching a Kobe Bryant interview the other day, and it was amazing, just on what he thinks the way you should think. Are you thinking to win, or you're afraid to lose? And how he's like, no, I'm just want to get better all the time. Actually had a talk with one of my athletes after he was walking off and saying negative things about the way he wrestled. And I said, we watched that video the other day of Kobe Bryant, and he's like, "Yeah, I know, I know." I said, "He's talking about I never really lose, and when we win, even when I win, I'm thinking about how am I going to grow and get better." You're telling yourself you're not very good. I stunk today. So you're feeding your mind that. He's like, "I got to change. You're right." and I can take him to a mental Monday and of a video of a basketball player, and he's learning, and he can think back. And so that's the purpose of these, that it just isn't that 5 minute or 20 minute thing we did on Monday. It's going to carry through his career and later in life.
That's so cool. We at the camps that we run, we have a leadership and mindset curriculum that we've built, and um, it's awesome. Two things. One, it's awesome to see like how quickly the athletes latch onto it. I think a lot of coaches like have a little fear stepping into that. It's like I know my sport. I'm not a sports psych, etc. But like if you just start asking your athletes questions, like, hey, how much of your performance do you think is mental? They'll give you like crazy high percentages because they
No,
know
I
like
know.
so much of it is in between my ears. And I just to have the courage as coaches to step into that and say, hey, we all recognize this is a part of performance and let's figure out how to do it well, I think is so important.
Which
The
comes
second,
back to reading.
yeah,
And I just read, I constantly reading books on, how people became successful. And you can learn about mental. I mean, there's so many great books out there. So when I run in, I think if you look in the back of my book, I put about 100 books on there, and some of them were focused on coaching, some of them on the mental side. And I continue to grow that list because, people are like, how can I get better? And I'm like, read, read. You'll get some great ideas to talk to your team, to do things with your team, or just to make you better in the way you
yeah,
organize and do things. I mean, I read Bill Walsh's book. It's one of the best organizational books, how to run a program. And I'm telling people, well, he's an NFL coach. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO of a company. Read this book on how they answer the phone is important. That reading is such an important, and I didn't get that till really later in my life. I started to get more and more into reading, and started to realize it when my AD was giving me books of all these successful organizations and people, and I fell in love with it and kept reading.
yeah. There's a link to a podcast I'm going to send you after this. It's with James Dyson, founder of Dyson Vacuums. He spent 4 years and he created 5,126 prototypes for his cyclonic vacuum that
Yeah,
failed until the 5,127th actually worked. It just like the so I just brought that up. It's like, yeah, like I was listening to this conversation. It's like, wow, just the commitment to that, the mindset that he had to be able to, and he talks about it. He's like, I didn't view these as failures. I was just fascinated every time it didn't work. He was like, I was just going to figure out what
that's
did I need to
that was the
change.
Kobe Bryant thing. I don't
Yeah,
fail. It's
yeah,
just this is the next thing to learn from, and
yeah.
you keep practicing and getting better.
And I think it's also just worth highlighting, like as coaches, we've got to adopt that mindset too. It's easy for us to be like, our athletes need to adopt it, but for us as like we're performing as coaches, sometimes the things we try don't work. It's like I want to do this new thing in practice. I'm trying to get feedback in a different way, and we bomb. It's like, okay, like learn from it, try it again, get some feedback. It's easy for us as coaches to not put ourselves in that
Yeah,
place too.
definitely.
Yeah. There's something that you shared quite a bit earlier in the conversation, but it stuck out to me and I want to hear more about how you guys do it. You were talking about competing. And I think every coach everywhere, if you were like, hey, tell me what you want your team to be like, most coaches are going to have compete or some version of effort like on their list of what people want, what they would want someone to say about their team. Coaches want their team to be competitive. You talked about like you guys are really intentional about teaching your athletes how to compete.
Yeah.
Will you say more about that?
Yeah, I mean everything. So it starts from day one. How are we going to compete to have a championship facility? So and compete is really how you're doing things. You're competing for it. So are we keeping, so we have people that oversee the locker room and people that oversee this floor of the facility, and just they're a leadership role and competing to keep it clean and making it look like a championship facility. To then, how are we competing in the classroom? They're setting goals on what they want to do. So if we're competing, so I bring in my academic advisor who comes in and recognizes tiger style behaviors. say, Luke, you were getting a C in a class. He would say, Luke was really struggling. I know he was studying with Logan over here and this, and Logan, you helped him, and he just got an A minus on a test, and that's awesome. You competed, and so we're teaching about competing that way. So and so went to the children's hospital, was doing community service, and really has been going every week for the last 5 weeks. And we'll hear that and like, man, that's awesome. That's competing to be make others feel better. And you're going to see those kids, and that's teaching compete. To then at in practice, competition is important. So a lot of there's a couple days a week we'll end with like a competition. We have three full giant mats in our room, so we'll bring two guys in the center of each of those and compete for the who's going to win. Takedown wins it. Let's go. And the teams around it, and they're competing, and it becomes pretty very competitive, and they're getting after it. But that's competing. During the summer, we break them into teams, and they play competitions of soccer and team handball. They're competing. We want them to compete for everything, to compete to be make the program grow to be better, whether it's academics, whether it's in the community, whether it's on the mat. We're competing to get better. And then so a lot of times I'll video after practice what they're doing. And when we end a practice, we don't run long practices, so we finish in an hour and 15 to an hour and 30. And it's amazing after practice. It is and it isn't. It's a part of the culture. Most of them are in there still working on the things that they struggled with during practice, or something they've been struggling in, or just something they want to keep getting better. And they're on the mat and working, grabbing coaches, or just helping a teammate. And that's part of competing to get better. Not just walking, oh, I had a bad day, I'm going home. No, I'm going to stay after and keep working at it.
It's so good. You beat me to it. I was going to ask you about your philosophy on practice, length, and intensity. Again, I think this is somewhere where you diverge from maybe the norm or what
Yeah.
coaches can think is the most helpful for their athletes. Long practices, 2 3 hours, right? Depending on your sport, a difference. But like for example, in basketball, what I primarily coach, a lot of coaches want to go 2 hours plus. I'm kind of cut from your cloth of like, nah, minutes is enough, or sometimes shorter. Will you talk to me about why you made that change to shorter practices and what you feel like the benefits of it are?
Part of it is I do see injuries have gone up, and I don't know what the cause. I do think part of it is kids pick one sport and they're overusing, and that happens, and especially in individual sports like wrestling. These kids have been wrestling since 5, and they know how to wrestle already, so you're really just tweaking and making them a little bit better. So if I can get an hour and a half out of kids where we say, here's the focus of the practice, then I give them a lot of information. Kids today like information. They have those things in their hand all the time that gives them information. But coach tells them, hey, here's what we're going to accomplish today. We're going to get better in these couple areas, and then we're going to go over here and we're going to go and work on these couple things. And then we're going to get some live situations from here or whatever. And then we're going to do a couple conditioning things and we're out of here. But I want your effort. I want you to help each other work through this and give me the intensity, and we'll get through it. And they love that. And if you can get a really intense 90 minutes out of them, or an hour, some of our best practices are 1 hour where it's nonstop, it's hard. We're working on things, and the intensity level. And some practices will go a little longer than an hour and a half, but they're slower, more focused on technique. But I think once you pass the hour and a half, you start losing them. And then you're having kids drilling, making mistakes, and you can yell at them and do all these things, but they're never going to wrestle. A match is 7 minutes. We're going an hour and a half. I think I would rather have the mental fortitude of that 90 minutes than 2 hours where you're losing them. And then they start to dislike practice. I want my kids to love to be in practice. And that's the attitude I bring. I'm like, man, we get to be here today, guys. Let's be excited. Here's what we're working on. Let's get better. Here's why, because remember we struggled here in this last duel. We got to, and you have to, it's not motivate them, but say, hey, we have to grow here. We have to grow in these areas to keep improving throughout the season. That's part of Tiger style. Let's do it. And sometimes asking questions, where do you think we need to get better? man, we struggled on bottom this past weekend. Coach, can we work more bottom? And let them, we want to work more on bottom. Let's do it. And I know that's what they'll probably say as a coach, but when it comes from them or they have partial ownership of a practice, I'm not letting them run the practice, but when they get a little input to it, they're more invested. Anybody, a person that owns a house or rents a house, the person that owns the house is more invested in cutting the grass and planting plants and vacuuming the house. They're going to be more invested in those things and keeping the upkeep of the house. It's the same thing with this. When you have them cleaning locker rooms and invested in practices of this, you start to develop a culture that is more invested and will do more.
Yeah, yeah, it's so good. It's so true, and the research supports what you're saying too. This is like self determination theory research that everyone wants autonomy, belonging, and what's the third one? Connection, right?
In action.
Yeah, or no, support. Maybe I may have missed one there, but autonomy is like
No, you're
ownership
right.
of it. Yeah, like do I have some autonomy and choice here? And just because I would do the same thing often of like, hey guys, like, what do you think we need to work on? Or hey, we've got these two different games or activities. Which one do you guys want to do first? Even like we're gonna do them both. You choose which one first, or which of these things do you want to do in practice today? Or sometimes like myself or another one of the coaches, we'd pull an athlete over. Hey, you're going to help us plan a couple segments of practice where we want to focus on getting better in transition offense. What do you think we should do here? And they light up too, man. They're like, oh, coach, like I got you. Let's do that. You're like, what do you think about this? Like, no, we don't like that one. It's like you're actually going to get some really helpful information from them too. And now the relationship strengthened. There's more buy-in. Yeah, they feel like they own it versus they're renting. Like all
Yeah,
of
and I'm a
that.
sport where it's a combative sport, but when
Yeah.
they're working on technique, a lot of guys always have their guy they want to work out with. In the beginning of the year, I make the older guys work out with the new guys. So they're teaching them how we practice. Here's the effort you're going to give. Here's the way you got to think and learn. You're not working on the technique coach is saying, get back to doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's really helpful. The other thing is the NCAA mandates I take days off. We don't even come close to the 20-hour rule. It's amazing on our off days how every guy's in the room working on things. They come in on their own and they're working on things and they want to get better. Or a recovery day, they're down there in the cold tubs and we're teaching them about that and getting in the infrared light and red light stuff. They're getting in massage chairs and understanding that taking care of your body too is a part of a practice routine that you have this time off, use it to make your body improve. And so that's a part of, when we talk about competing, that's competing. Competing is how are what are you doing to take care of your body? You're saying you feel run down, you're not motivated. Are you eating right? Are you sleeping right? Are you doing the recovery days? Are you motivated about getting better? All these things tie in.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to I've experienced it with certain organizations or cultures I've been a part of. I try to create it in the camps that we run. You've created an addictive culture, and I mean that in an incredibly positive way, where people give extraordinary amounts of themselves to this because of how it is and because of how it makes them feel. And the thing about those cultures is that when you're a part of them, you give so much to them. And when you leave them, you're energized. It's crazy. It's like I'm exhausted physically, right? I gave so much, but I'm energized. Like I'm filled with joy. I'm filled with passion for it. And again, like that doesn't happen without tons of thought and intention and effort. But when you get there, like it becomes its own beast almost. The culture does. Where again, it's like the guys are in here. I don't even have to ask them. They just do it because this is who we are and how we live, and they believe in it, and they're
When I
yeah, it's
talk
so
to my
powerful.
guys that have been out 20 something years and coach, I'm still living it. And that's what I wanted to call the book. I wanted to be coach, I'm still living it. And they're like, no, you got to use Tiger style. That's the only thing I was against them on. And I lost
Well, they're I think they
because
they
it,
know what
it
they're
is
doing from a
kind of what
marketing
it's
stuff.
about. You're living
Yeah,
the culture that
yeah,
guys 20
yeah.
years, but it wouldn't have been, they said Tiger style is catchier and
It is.
the
I'm not gonna
marketing
lie.
people.
Yeah, I get why you wanted that title, but they probably knew what they were talking about. One of the last topics I want to ask you about is, and I think this kind of comes back to the beginning of the conversation where you talked about, hey, this culture is, it's an embodiment of you. You've shared a lot about how important your morning routine is and how it fuels you every day. Will you say more about that? Why you think it's so important, maybe what yours is, and the
I,
benefits you've seen from it?
I teach it to my guys that, as soon as you wake up in the morning, what you choose to do is how you're going to kind of start your day. And, what's the general, Admiral McClaven or whatever, Make Your Bed. It's a great book on the first thing they teach you is in the military is make your bed. You've now succeeded at one thing in your day. You started your day up, you got up, you make your bed, and you've accomplished something. And that's about stacking positive things that in your mindset and your daily routines is important. It's the same thing. I wake up. One of the first things I'm doing after I pour a cup of coffee is I sit down and it's prayer, it's reading, it's this routine, and it's feeding my mind positive things. I'm thinking of others when I'm in my prayer, and then when I start to read a book, whatever I'm reading is just something that's of interest to me that I want to learn. And then it gets me thinking about my day. Man, then I look at my schedule. Here's my day. How does this tie in with my day? And then I walk. I don't own a car. I gave up a car in 2019 in COVID, and I moved. I used to live about 10 miles from campus. I bought a house with my wife and I, and we moved a mile from campus, and I walked through campus to get to the Hearn Center where I work. And so I walked to it. And in that time, my mind is, how am I going to attack the day and that type of thing and get to work. So that is an important thing. Or, when you're hitting the snooze, and you're staying in bed and then you're rushed and you're forgetting things. My day really starts the night before. I always lay out my clothes, even if it's just the sweats. I have it. Part of it is so I don't wake my wife up. It's already out of the drawers and in the bathroom, but I want to be organized. I wake up, I get dressed, and I go do my routine in the kitchen with my prayer and with my thoughts and preparation and what I'm listening to, whether it's a podcast or what I'm reading. So that's important. Even I'm listening to a book. When I'm walking, I usually have books on tape that I'm listening to when I'm walking to work. So I just think that sets your day up so when I get to the office, I've accomplished a lot so far. And then having a to-do list is important too. You know,
Yeah.
I knew I had this podcast. I know I have another thing at 2 o'clock where I'm meeting with people. And so those things are going to have to be done. What am I going to do in between those times? Having your day planned out is better than just showing up. And because if I just show up, guys pop in, this and that. If I don't get one, two, and three done, I'm going to be bummed at the end of the day. I'm going to feel like I got nothing done. So at least if I have a to-do list and can get a few things off of that list done, I know I've had a good day.
Yeah. You got to lead yourself. Like that's you lead yourself every day before you can show up and lead others well. I'll be honest, coach, I've got three little kids right now, 6, 3 and 1.
Your mornings are busy.
The consistent morning routine is brutal
It's
for
hard.
me right now. It is hard. I went and played basketball this morning at 5:15. I do that every Monday. That's huge for me.
That's awesome.
And then I'm trying to get up before them. Inevitably, it's almost like every time I sit down in my chair, all right, got some time. No kids are awake. It's like 5 minutes later, kid walks out. It's like, okay, great. Well, here goes. So yeah,
I
it is so
understand.
important.
I get to
And
work. I
it's
have
hard.
30 of them. I
Yeah,
have 30
they're
of
coming
them
in,
that pop
coach. I
in. Hey,
need
coach,
this.
how's it
Yeah,
going? They just want to chat. And
yeah,
it's like, man, I'm busy, but if they come
yeah,
in my office, I stop everything. And
yeah,
but that's a part of it. Part of
yeah,
you is you want to be a great father.
yeah.
So if you don't stop, if you say, hey, I'm too busy, and there are times you might have to do that, but man, this is the most important. Right there, they just popped in on me. You've got to spend that time with them and give them that attention.
Yeah, yeah. Giving our attention to the people in front of us, I don't think we
Yes.
can understate how important that is. It's easy as coaches to be pulled a million directions, and yeah, like you're talking about. Well, coach, this has been really awesome. Before we hop off, I have three rapid fire questions I ask my guests. Would love to just hear
Okay.
the first thing that comes to your mind. The first one is this: the most fun part of coaching is.
Uh, like, yeah, yesterday on the bus, just the joy they have being together. And then last week I was at a wedding, and there's 20 something guys that came back for this guy's wedding, and the relationships and being around it and the love and the hugs and talking, whether it's on a bus or at a wedding, that it's not about the wrestling, it's about being together and living this culture.
That's so good. The second one is this: I wish I would have known blank before my first coaching experience.
I I always hate that question because I didn't want to know anything because I had to learn it and grow from it, like I asked my athletes. So I'm glad I had to go through it and
Yeah.
struggle and learn and make mistakes. That's
Yeah.
part of life. If I had the genie in the bottle and you just won national championships because I had the genie in the bottle and whatever it may be, it would have been too easy and I wouldn't have put the time in and had to learn. Failure does create success, and so I had to go through it.
Yeah, that's awesome. The journey is special. And the last one might be similar to the first. I know I'm successful as a coach when.
Oh, when I get calls and emails and see guys at weddings and they're, hey, coach, thanks, or they're calling me for advice. That happens a lot. Coach, I'm 20 years out and they're asking me advice for. I had a guy call me just the other day and he's thinking of leaving his job for another job. And what do you think? Should I go towards this or that? And I'm like, I don't really know. This has got to be you. But I said, I have to just advise him on, what I would think about it. But this is what you think. But the fact that they have faith in me as a leader to call me for advice in life that's why you coach, to develop that relationship that you have more of a bond, not just the athlete and coach, but it's almost like, coach knows other stuff too, and I really believe in him, and that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that puts a bow on things nicely. Like the big theme through so much of this is the relationships and
Yes.
the commitment to those relationships and the standards, the values. Those things are all about how do we foster a connected team where
Yes.
relationships are healthy, where we're all growing together. Yeah, it's so good. That's so, so good. Well, Coach, this has been amazing. I am so grateful for your time. Thanks for sharing with coaches today. And coaches, we encourage you to go grab a copy of the book and dive into it, see what you can take from it to apply to your culture and grow as a coach and build a better team. Coach Smith, so grateful for your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Keep living it.
Coaches, thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. Thanks to Coach Smith for joining us. To grab a copy of his book or to get a free PDF of the show notes, check out the links in the show details. And if you'd like to join our online community for coaches, or if you're interested in learning more about becoming one of our Nike Sports Camp directors, head to the show details and click on those links. Thanks for listening to the podcast.